Well, I can tell you what the head of Exxon said in our air this morning.
Thank you.
And that's kind of an easy tell. And who do I want to listen to? He said it's just starting. What maybe people don't know is we started this war with a lot of oil on the seas. And
what does that mean? What does that mean?
Oil in tankers. I think they knew this was coming. They filled up the oil. They brought it around. We're approaching what the head of Exxon calls the operational minimum. We're still a couple billion barrels above that. When that happens, right now the oil is flowing. People can get the oil they want at a price. The issue becomes what happens when we can't get the oil and you have to start to bid up for it. I actually did a stat. You said 22 billion. Mm-hmm. I did a stat at the beginning of this whole thing predicting that this would be a transference of wealth inside this country of 150 billion for the full year.
Transference from who to who?
You have to ask me that question?
I want you to tell our audience.
It's a transference of wealth from ordinary average Americans to the oil producers and the people who are
but then this is why I asked.
Let me get, you keep going.
How big of a deal is it that the CEO of Exxon, right, who the last thing he wants to do in this world is anger one of one Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office, and he was willing to tell that truth on your air today. That's the point I want to make.
He has no choice. He has to say, we asked him the question, where are we at? And it's already showing up, but it's not showing up in a big way. When you look at the macro data, it's being overwhelmed by what's happening with artificial intelligence and the investment in this country. In fact, you could do some crude math and come up with the 2% growth we had in the first quarter. 1.5 could have been associated with AI. Now, let's take that out, okay? You take that out, what are we having? We have incomes have been down 2 months in a row, real incomes adjusted for inflation. Year over year, income's up just 0.2%, the lowest since November 22. We had decent spending, low income. Steve, how did you get there? I'll tell you, Stephanie, in case you're asking. We got there, but we drew down savings. And with savings are at the lowest level since 2022. So what's happening now, people are papering it over. They're using debt, they're using their savings. That can't last very long. If this goes on much longer, there will be much more severe consequences that people will feel in a way they're not feeling it just now.
So the robots are doing well, real people not so much. Then help me understand this. Steve just gave us a true reality check. Yet Republicans are going on Fox and other sort of right-wing media outlets looking directly into the camera and saying that gas prices are going down. I said this on the show before. You can fool my mother, Louise Rule in Park Ridge, New Jersey, about foreign policy issues that she doesn't see, that she doesn't touch. She sure as hell knows how much it costs to get gas because she goes by the gas station every day of her life. Help me understand this political strategy.
Here's the thing. It's not a political strategy. And the problem is when you tell people facts, right? Adam can speak to this. And they get triggered, right? When Republicans and moderate people get triggered, when you just give them basic facts and information, that also speaks to the people. It's like, wait, you don't have an answer.
Let's be clear. Democrats are really good at getting triggered.
Yeah. They can be triggered. But I do think when you're the one who drove us into the ditch, right? Like the Republicans drove us into the ditch about Iran. And I keep saying this is what I said before. No matter what you do, no matter how you try and explain it, you cannot change what my experience is with gas. You cannot change what my experience is with Fruit Loops. You cannot change what my experience is. The very same people who were complaining about egg prices, now trust me, I've tried to get an omelet, right? when you go to IHOP, it has jumped up a bit. I've been to small bars in Youngstown, Ohio, and I have seen the prices go up. And you can't get people to not believe what their actual lived experiences are. That's what the Republicans' problem is. They have no empathy, and the person at the top of the ticket can't seem to fake empathy long enough for any of the people who are his minions out there running for office to repeat what he has to say.
Then let's go to Trump, because just today he has already told us he doesn't need Congress's approval to continue this war, and just tonight he said, get ready, we're going to be taking over Cuba almost immediately. I'm guessing the Cuba move is the latest distraction to take your eye off Iran. I do not know. What are you hearing?
Alternatively, I actually look at the way that the Trump administration is moving on the world stage, Venezuela, Iran, now potentially Cuba, as a sign of Marco Rubio's ascension and solidifying his position within the Trump administration because, fun fact, before they assigned me to cover the Trump campaign in 2015, I was supposed to be the Marco Rubio campaign embed. So I learned a lot about his foreign policy and then, of course, followed him when he was still in the Senate. These are all central tenets of Rubio's worldview. It's a much more traditional neoconservative worldview. And it's interesting to see the way that Trump is adopting it, especially given the fact that one of the centerpieces of his MAGA agenda was America First, which really meant America not dabbling on the world stage and spending the money in the way that we did. Of course, the most recent example and the clearest example on the campaign trail was we're not going to continue funding our ally Ukraine in its war against Russia's aggression. There's a lot of reasons why many people on the right and the left think that it's the wrong call to stop helping our ally. Europe, certainly, part of the reason that the German chancellor is so upset is in large part because of that and other moves on the world stage. But then when you look at the fact that Cuba might be next, yeah, it's got the distraction potential, but I think it all comes back to this idea that has really perplexed me is that the Trump administration never tried to sell any of this. I actually think that there's probably a good percentage of Americans who, if they had been told, hey, we're going to go into Iran, we're worried about how aggressive they are, they've never been good actors, and we feel that this is the moment because X, Y, and Z, I actually think that there's a pretty good number of Americans who would have given them some leeway because at least they would have had the respect to explain it to them and not just feel like we're suddenly wading into a quagmire, which we have.
So Republicans are successfully digging a ditch for themselves, but are Democrats making a good case for themselves, especially